quick warning. This is an American horror movie so terrifying that even ghosts would be scared to watch it. The story is based on the infamous Sunshine Manor murders, a case that shocked the entire United States. But the truth behind the real events was even more horrifying than what was shown in the movie. The movie starts with an intense scene. A woman has just moved into a new house. She happily begins making the bed and arranging the sheets. But a second later, something strange happens. Unfortunately, she doesn't notice it at all. She picks up her young son and prepares to leave the room. But the moment she turns around, she is shocked to see that the perfectly clean wall is suddenly covered with large patches of mold and stains seeping through the surface. The woman doesn't think much of it. She immediately stands on a chair and starts wiping the stains off the wall. But then, she notices something else. Her little son is staring at the ceiling without blinking, as if he sees something up there. She turns around to look, but there is nothing there. At the same time, her daughter Amy enters her new room. She looks around and seems fairly satisfied with it. However, when she passes by the basement door, she suddenly hears a strange noise coming from inside. She tries the door, but discovers that it appears to be locked from the inside. No matter what she does, it won't open. Amy doesn't think much of it and walks away. What she doesn't realize is that several long claw marks are clearly scratched into the floor right outside the door. Later, Amy goes upstairs. Suddenly, something seems to fall outside the house and slams into the window with a loud crash. Confused, Amy walks over to investigate. Then suddenly, that was close. It turns out to be a crow. But for some reason, even though the family just moved in today, there is already a crow symbol drawn on the outside of the glass. And Amy and her mother aren't the only ones experiencing strange things. The family's young son has an unsettling encounter of his own. One day, while getting ready to eat, he notices something unusual reflected in his spoon. He looks closer. To his horror, he sees a long, pale hand. Instinctively, he turns around. There, hanging upside down from a ceiling beam, is a hunched, childlike figure. Curious, the boy follows it. Then he watches as the strange child suddenly crawls into a room. That room is the same basement that Amy couldn't open before, the one with the claw marks on the floor. But this time, something is different. As the boy approaches, the motionless doorknob suddenly begins turning by itself. Then a terrifying, ghostly face flashes across the keyhole. It is almost as if something is trying to lure him inside, trying to convince him to open the door. Just then, his mother rushes over and picks him up. But even while being carried away, the boy keeps staring at the basement door. At this moment, the mother clearly has no idea how serious the situation really is. She tells her husband to take their son back to his room. Then she goes to bed and gets a good night's sleep. The next morning, she wakes up and is shocked to find the wall covered in stains once again. She stares at it in disbelief. She had just cleaned it yesterday. How could it already be back? She assumes the house is simply old and worn down. Maybe stains like this are normal in an aging home. So she cleans the wall once again. Meanwhile, she asks Amy to help with some chores around the house. She tells her to move a few boxes into the basement, but no matter how hard Amy twists the doorknob, the door still refuses to budge. Then suddenly, it clicks open on its own. The old basement is completely dark. You can barely see a thing inside. A strong, unpleasant odor hangs heavily in the air. Amy has no choice but to switch on a nearby light. Then she picks up a box and carefully walks downstairs. After placing the box in the basement, she begins looking around curiously. She wants to see what is actually hidden down here. As she continues exploring, she makes an incredible discovery. In this old, run-down basement, she finds a solid 24-karat gold pocket watch. The only problem is that she cannot get it open. While wondering about it, she suddenly hears a strange sound coming from a nearby corner. Amy cautiously walks over to investigate. To her surprise, she finds a pitch-black crow lying there. Wanting to see if it is really dead, she carefully picks up a piece of wood and nudges it. Suddenly, the crow springs to life. Startled, Amy jumps back as the bird begins flying wildly around the basement. Watching the crow dart in every direction, Amy becomes so frightened that she can barely catch her breath. What she doesn't know is that her father is also having a strange encounter with crows. The difference is that he isn't facing just one. He is facing an entire flock. As he stares at the countless crows in front of him, he freezes in fear. Then, without warning, the birds seem to become agitated by something. They suddenly attack him like a swarm. The father grits his teeth and stumbles backward while trying to fend them off. Just when things seem hopeless, a loud gunshot echoes through the air. The noise startles the crows and sends them scattering. Only then does the father escape. Moments later, a man named Sang Biao walks up to him. The gunshot that scared away the birds came from him. Meanwhile, the sound also draws the attention of the mother and Amy. They rush outside in panic. After confirming that everyone is safe, they finally breathe a sigh of relief. To thank Sang Biao for helping them, the family invites him to stay for dinner. As they talk, the father learns more about him. Sang Biao has no car, no house, no savings, and no steady job. He survives by doing odd jobs around the area. Feeling sympathetic, the father offers him another opportunity. He asks if Sang Biao would be willing to stay and help take care of the farm. But during the day's work, the father accidentally injures his hand, so the mother drives him to a nearby hospital to have it treated. Once the parents leave, only Amy and her little brother remain in the house. Just then, a crow suddenly flashes past them once again. It flies up and lands on the roof, almost as if it is warning them that something terrible is about to happen. And that night, it does. While Amy is making dinner for her brother, the lights suddenly begin flickering. At the same time, a loud and strange noise echoes from the ceiling above. Amy immediately looks up. Then she hears a series of heavy footsteps coming from upstairs. This time, she is truly terrified. Thinking someone has broken into the house, she quickly tells her brother to stay where he is and not move. Then she follows the sounds toward the staircase. Suddenly, the lights throughout the house begin flashing non-stop. Furniture starts flying through the air on its own. Within seconds, the newly renovated home is completely destroyed. But right now, worrying about furniture is the least of Amy's concerns. Panicked, she grabs her little brother and hides with him in a corner. She immediately calls the police. Frantically, she explains everything that is happening and begs them to send help right away. But her little brother has no idea how dangerous the situation is. When he notices a toy car in front of him, he instinctively gets up and follows it. Or rather, it seems as if some unseen force is quietly leading him toward it. By the time Amy realizes something is wrong, her brother has already reached the basement door. At that exact moment, the tightly closed door slowly swings open by itself. When Amy rushes over, her brother is gone. All that remains is the toy car and the open doorway. Confused, Amy kneels down to pick up the toy car. But the next second, it suddenly rolls away on its own and disappears into the basement. As Amy stands there, completely baffled, she suddenly sees something unbelievable. Her little brother appears in the hallway behind her, completely unharmed. As the hallway gradually falls silent, Amy suddenly manages to break free from the evil spirit's grip with all her strength. She quickly grabs her little brother and runs for her life. But at that moment, every door in the house is sealed shut by some dark force. None of them will open. With no other choice, Amy crawls through an emergency escape window. That is the only reason she manages to survive. Just then, Sang Biao comes running over. Seeing Amy trembling in fear, he immediately asks what happened. But when Amy nervously looks back at the house, she makes a terrifying discovery. The entire place looks perfectly normal. Everything is neat and untouched. It is as if nothing had ever happened. Before Amy can even recover from the shock, the police and her parents finally arrive. They search the entire house, yet they do not find a single sign of anyone else being there. On top of that, they assume Amy is simply frightened because she is still adjusting to a new environment. Amy is completely stunned. Just moments ago, a crazed woman had been trying to drag her into the basement. How could all evidence of it suddenly disappear? But no matter how hard she tries to explain, her parents refuse to believe her. They even think she is overreacting. According to them, she just needs a few more days to get used to the house. There is nothing to be afraid of. Seeing their reaction, Amy decides to seek help from Sang Biao the next day. She begs him to tell her parents what he saw, but Sang Biao gives a similar answer. He says that when he arrived, all he saw was Amy climbing out of the house in a panic. Other than that, he noticed nothing unusual. Now that nobody believes her, Amy feels completely helpless. As a last resort, she goes to a boy she met the night before and asks for help. She wants him to find out whether anything strange happened in the house before her family moved in. The boy thinks about it and says there actually was something, but it happened more than a decade ago. Back then, Amy's house was nothing more than an abandoned old building. The boy and his friends used to dare each other to go inside. One day, they made a bet. Whoever was brave enough to enter the basement would become the leader of the group. One of the boys volunteered and ran inside. But about 2.5 minutes later, a horrifying scream came from the basement. The sound scared them so badly that they ran away as fast as they could. After hearing the story, Amy should have been more careful. Instead, she becomes even more curious about what is hidden in that basement. What happens next perfectly proves the saying, curiosity can get you killed. As soon as she enters the basement, Amy finds a simple drawing. It was probably left behind by the boy years ago, but aside from that, she cannot find anything unusual, so she decides to leave. Unfortunately, once you enter a place controlled by evil spirits, leaving is not always your choice. Suddenly, thick black water begins seeping up through the floor. Slowly, it crawls toward her. Amy notices something is wrong and turns around. By then, the black liquid has already reached her feet. At that exact moment, another strange noise echoes through the basement. Terrified, Amy runs toward the exit, but just as she reaches the stairs, a ghostly hand suddenly appears. It grabs her and violently pulls her down. And in that instant, a horrifying vision flashes through her mind. She sees a young girl being attacked. What happened to that girl looks exactly like what is happening to Amy right now. Panicked, Amy quickly turns around. Everything is normal again. The basement looks exactly as it did before. Yet the fear remains trapped inside her. After leaving the basement, she considers telling her parents everything. But the moment she remembers how they reacted last night, she changes her mind. Instead, she sits alone on the ground. Her body shakes as she breaks down in tears. Thankfully, during her darkest moment, Sang Biao comes over and comforts her. Little by little, she calms down. But later that same day, she notices something strange once again. In the sunflower pond behind the house, it looks like something is hiding beneath the surface. Suddenly, the door slams shut for no reason. Amy quickly moves to open it, but before she can reach it, another strange noise comes from behind her. She turns around in surprise and walks toward the sound. Then a ghostly figure flashes past her once again. Now, Amy finally understands. The evil spirit from before has come back. Determined to end this nightmare, she gathers her courage and asks the spirit what it wants from her. The moment the words leave her mouth, a young boy suddenly appears in the corner of the storage shed. Amy cautiously approaches him, but the next second, something attacks her. The encounter leaves her injured and she is rushed to the hospital. Fortunately, the wounds are not serious. After receiving treatment, she returns home with her parents. On the way back, Amy repeatedly tries to explain what happened. She insists that she saw a ghost in the shed, but her parents refuse to believe her. Instead, they start thinking that she may be having mental problems. At this point, Amy is tired of arguing. She angrily slams her bedroom door and locks herself inside. But then something unexpected happens. The pocket watch she found in the basement suddenly opens by itself. As she stares at the photograph inside, she falls deep into thought. She immediately finds the boy and asks for his help. Together, they head to a grocery grocery store in town. After searching through old notices and reports, they finally discover a newspaper article from more than a decade ago, and with it, the horrifying truth begins to emerge. Before Amy's house was abandoned, a family of 4 once lived there. The husband suffered from severe mental illness. Unable to endure his behavior any longer, the wife decided to escape with her children. One night, beneath a sky filled with crows, she planned to leave forever. But before they could get away, the husband returned home. His illness took over once again. First, he violently threw his wife against a wall, then he shoved the older daughter down the stairs. Even the youngest child failed to escape his rage. None of them survived. The pocket watch Amy found had actually belonged to the wife. It was her most treasured possession. But the most terrifying part is what Amy discovers next. The man responsible for the entire massacre, the mentally unstable husband who murdered his family, is none other than Sang Biao, the same man currently working on her family's property. He appears friendly and harmless, yet he once committed a horrifying crime. Because of his mental condition, Sang Biao no longer remembers what happened. But even if he has forgotten, the dead woman never has. After suffering such a tragic fate, there is no way her spirit could ever forgive him. As Amy continues investigating the truth, dark winds suddenly begin blowing across the sky. Countless crows rise into the air. Sang Biao watches them in confusion. Then the flock suddenly attacks him. The birds tear at his flesh with savage fury, and at that moment, his memories finally return. His mind is dragged back into the past. When he sees Amy's mother, he mistakes her for his dead wife. Before she can react, he slaps her across the face. Then he looks at Amy's little brother. In his broken mind, the boy becomes his son. Realizing something is terribly wrong, the mother shoves Sang Biao away. She grabs her son and runs. Then she locks herself and the boy inside the basement. Meanwhile, Amy and the boy finally return home. Suspecting that Sang Biao may have attacked her mother, they grab an axe and begin searching the house. But while they are looking around, Sang Biao suddenly appears behind them. Without warning, he strikes the boy and knocks him unconscious. Amy is horrified. She immediately runs into the basement. There, she finally finds her mother and little brother hiding inside. But none of them realize how far gone Sang Biao has become. Completely consumed by madness, he grabs a massive pitchfork and starts smashing through the basement door. Eventually, he breaks through and stands before them. "You are a terrible woman." Amy grabs a stick and tries to stop him, but Sang Biao easily throws her to the ground. Her mother rushes in to protect her. She is struck aside as well. At this point, Sang Biao has completely lost control. Just like years ago, he intends to slaughter the entire family. He prepares to deliver the final blow, but then something unbelievable happens. Black water suddenly begins seeping from the floor, and from that dark liquid, the spirit of his murdered wife emerges. She reaches out toward him with a hand filled with vengeance. "My family will stay together forever." "We are not your family." Sang Biao desperately struggles as the black mire drags him down. He fights with everything he has, but no amount of strength can overcome the hatred of the woman he murdered. As Amy watches in terror, Sang Biao is slowly pulled into the darkness, and finally, he is dragged straight into hell. From that day forward, Amy and her family are freed from the haunting. The evil spirit no longer troubles them, and peace finally returns to their lives.